It's the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Joe Biden is now officially the 46th president of the United States. Get ready for a Democratic backlash that's been building up 4 years now against all things MAGA. Friends, it's time for Hold the Line.
History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace.
Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. That was President Joe Biden calling for national unity in his address earlier today. Despite days of fear stoked by the left and the corporate media, Biden's inauguration went off without incident, thankfully, calling into question, though, the necessity of the nearly 30,000 National Guard troops deployed to Washington, D.C. Big fences, barbed wire, all kinds of militarization going on. For his part, former President Trump sounded magnanimous, at least in his address prior to boarding a plane for Florida. He thanked family and supporters for helping carry him through his 4 years in office.
I want to thank all of my family and my friends and my staff and so many other people for being here. I want to thank you for your effort, your hard work. People have no idea how hard this family worked. They worked, and they worked for you.
So what can we expect in the coming days? I wish I could tell you the Democratic talk of unity and coming together came from a place of honesty, but wouldn't be able to say that to you. Would you believe me even if I did? Trump derangement syndrome isn't going to go away now that Trump is no longer president. For Democrats, it's now time to settle some scores, unfortunately. It's time for silencing opposing voices, for crushing dissent. That's what they're really planning here. That's really the idea behind all of this. Do they have any interest in a third way? Are they going to find any triangulation, a middle ground, a halfway mark? No, they have control of the House, the Senate, and of the presidency. This means we're now living in a country that's going to feel pretty different from the last one, at least for a while. We have to be prepared for what this means, even for our ability to speak out against this. You're now going to have the vast majority of the journalistic establishment completely, utterly in the pocket of a presidential administration. Dissent will no longer be treated as patriotic. Dissent is now seditious. Criticism is treason. Trying to slow down the agenda will be called obstruction. You know what all the words are and how they will be deployed going forward. And the people whose job titles are to speak truth to power, that's going to be laughable. Does anybody really believe that all of a sudden the Get Trump Out of Office crew, known as the American journalistic establishment, is all of a sudden going to decide, after 4 years of nothing but that, they're going to be fair? They're going to call balls and strikes? All Joe Biden has to do is show up, and they'll say that he's a genius. All he has to do is be Joe Biden, and we'll be told that he's the greatest president since Barack Obama, for sure. That much we know, but he's one of the greats of our generation. Whatever they have to say, they'll say. It doesn't matter if they change their mind at the end of his presidency. It doesn't matter how long he decides he's even going to stay in office. Will he run for a second term? At the end of the day, the journalists have made their pick, and we know what that means. But the bigger concern is how you now have the state in the hands of the same people who were advocating for so much suppression of ideas they don't like leading up to this election. But this has been building for a very long time. They simply view speech that they oppose, they view ideas that contradict their own as too problematic to exist. We can't even coexist with our ideas in the internet ecosystem. You'd think that there's space for everything there, but no, we get pushed off of it. And now, well, you're going to see an alliance of sorts between all of those who have been building up and controlling institutions even while Trump was president, and the people who have, through this election, seized power, taken power legitimately, but they are now in charge. That's what's going on here. There's going to be no honeymoon between Trump supporters and this Biden administration, okay? That's not going to happen. We understand that there won't be any effort to look to what was done before and say, Maybe some of this could continue. Maybe there were some good ideas. The only possible exception to that may be the vaccine. And let's see how well they do with that. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. I hope that they do an incredible job with the distribution of this vaccine. But I know that Joe Biden has been a middling mediocrity for longer than I've been alive. That's actually true. What makes anybody think that all of a sudden he's going to become tactically proficient, that he's going to become a man of wisdom, a guy who makes good decisions? I would like to be proven wrong. In fact, I'll put my marker down here today. I want to be wrong. I want to see a Biden administration that ends the pandemic, that opens America, that gets us past all this stuff, a booming economy, no foreign wars we don't need, believes in an America First trade policy, secures our borders. But as I say more and more of this, because these are things that would be good for the country, you're probably already saying, well, that's just not going to happen, is it? Exactly. The coming months are not going to be particularly pleasant for those of us who felt the Trump agenda was moving the country in the right direction, but we will continue on as we are, and there are certainly better times, better elections, maybe even better candidates ahead. All right, we come back more on today's inauguration and what the coming days hold in store for conservatives with First TV contributor Rob Smith. I got a crash course into home title theft, and you better pray this crime never happens to you because it can ruin you financially. Here's how the crime happens. The legal titles to our homes are kept online where they can be hacked. A cyber thief finds your home's title, forges your signature on a quitclaim deed stating you sold your home to him. Then he takes out loans against your home until your equity is gone. You won't know until the collection calls pour in and you're not protected by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Home Title Lock protects you. And in the unlikely event you become a victim of home title theft while a member, Home Title Lock will spend up to $250,000 in legal fees to help restore your home's title. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Then use code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's code RADIO at HometitleLock.com. One more time, code RADIO for 30 free days of protection at HometitleLock.com.
I will always fight for you. I will be watching, I will be listening, and I will tell you that the future of this country has never been better. I wish the new administration great luck and great success. Goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form. Have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Donald Trump saying a final goodbye to his supporters in the last hours of his presidency this morning as Joe Biden was sworn in at the Capitol as the 46th President of the United States of America.
Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans.
What's next for the GOP and the Republican Party faithful, the MAGA base, everyone everywhere across the country who voted for Trump and probably having a pretty rough day today, which I can appreciate. Let's bring in First TV contributor Rob Smith. My man, Rob, good to see you.
What's going on, Buck?
Let's start with this. How do you think the president handled just today, or really this morning, his last moments in office?
Well, look, I think that he handled it as about as good as he could have. I mean, he thanked everybody for all of their help. He pretty much said that this movement stays, and then he, kind of went on his way. Do I think it would have been a really good show of national unity if he did end up at the inauguration? Yes, I think that would have probably been a good choice for national unity. But, Trump is going to be Trump, and he was Trump to the very end. So I'd be interested and looking forward to seeing what he does next.
Now, what are your expectations for where the MAGA movement, such as it is, goes? I mean, you're a guy who has not been afraid to MAGA for the last 4 years or so, and have certainly been supportive of this, not even just in a political sense, but you and I both understand there's a culture, a culture that transcends even just politics around Trump, of a kind of patriotism. And you had young people for the first time that I've ever seen excited in large numbers about GOP politics. Does this movement continue on with Trump as the originator, or does this movement continue on with Trump as the leader and figurehead?
I think it's a little bit different. It moves on with him as the originator, but also moves on with him as a kingmaker in the future. I think that he's going to be a huge part of the party moving forward. He doesn't just get on a plane and go to Florida and then we all say bye-bye Trump. No, he's still going to be a huge part of this. And I think that he's going to be very important in sort of lifting and elevating the next generation of, I guess, what we can say the MAGA faithful. These are people that are going to run for Congress. These are people that are going to run for even local positions. And I think that they're going to run on America First populist platform that he has popularized and pretty much reinvigorated the Republican Party. I think that sometimes, and maybe this is because it's in the left's best interest to ignore this, but this is a true multiracial, very diverse coalition. You got blacks, you got Latinos, you got Asians. We just sworn in our first Korean American Republican Congresswoman, I believe. So what Trump did and what this movement is doing right now is letting people know that it doesn't matter what your race is, your skin color, your sexual orientation, your religion, any of that stuff. You can love America. You can be America first. And it is the people that have pro-America, populist America first policies that are going to be the next leaders of our party.
Now, the president has said that he's going to continue his communications with the MAGA faithful, such as they are. But what does it mean if he doesn't have access to not only the presidential social media accounts, which he no longer has because he's not president, but if they kick him off on a personal capacity? I mean, how do you think the president's going to be able to reach folks? Essentially, does this push conservatives further into the creating our own platforms and our own means of communication that are at least open to protecting First Amendment principles?
I think it absolutely does. But look, Buck, you and I know that when President Trump wants to get on Fox News or One American News or Newsmax or wherever, he is going to get that platform. President Trump will always have the platform to get his message and his ideas and his views out to millions and millions of people. I think that it's up to him right now to figure out how best he is going to do that. Social media censorship and all this stuff, this is terrible for people like you and I, but we don't have the reach in the platforms that Trump had. So I think that he is going to be just fine. I think in terms of social media reach and in terms of the sort of targeting and silencing of conservatives on social media, this is something that we're going to have to push legislation for our pro-America congressmen and women right now, Lauren Boebert, Madison Cawthorn, Dan Crenshaw. All of these people still have a voice and still have a platform to get these messages out there in terms of social media tech censorship. But do I think Trump will have any problem getting his face and his voice and his views out there? Absolutely not.
Rob, what do you think should be the primary focus areas for the MAGA movement? What is the legacy that should continue on now as we go into a political opposition phase, but also a political building phase where, as you mentioned, there are other candidates, there are other people who will be coming forward and stepping perhaps higher up the leadership rungs to become effectively auxiliaries of this Trump America First movement? I mean, what do you think are the principles that we have to push for that Trump brought to the forefront?
I think there's a couple of things. And I think that, something that doesn't really get talked about a lot is the cultural impact that Trump had on the Republican Party. He brought younger, fresher people in with newer voices, people that can connect to culture in a way that people hadn't before. So now we have a base of conservative influencers within the party, I would say people like myself, who are able to connect culturally in a way that people couldn't before. But I really do think that moving forward, what we really need to do is we need to relieve ourselves of all of the conspiracy theories about Dominion voting systems being controlled by Venezuela and all of this other stuff. Now, is election integrity an issue? Absolutely. And it needs to be addressed. But we really need to break down and figure out the real reasons why this election was lost. Because if not, we're going to be like Hillary Clinton and the left for the past 4 years. They lucked out. They still haven't learned their lesson. And I think that it's very important for Republicans and for the GOP and for conservatives to learn the lessons of why this election was lost, to learn the lessons about depressed white turnout. Why was that? To learn the lessons about how it's so tough for us to get a youth vote. So if we don't learn these lessons, we're not going to be able to come back strong in 2022 and 2024.
Rob, before we let you go, what are your expectations for, let's just put it this way, how left-wing is a Biden presidency going to be in its first year?
Well, in terms of policies, I don't think the policies themselves are going to be super far left-wing. I think that the conversation among leaders of the party, and I'm talking congressmen and women, I'm talking about, their political influencers, all that stuff. I think that conversation is going to be very, very left. I think we're going to hear more conversations about racism and white supremacy and all of these different things to distract from the fact that I don't think that these policies are going to be that far left. I think that there's going to be a lot of far left chatter, but I don't know if the policies are going to be that far left. Are they more left than I would like? Absolutely, because I think that they're going to cost a lot of money. And I think that they just don't really have a grasp of what to do for the economy. But do I think that the policies themselves are going to be that far left? No. But the conversations in terms of squawking about racism and white supremacy and all of this other stuff, it is going to go into overdrive to distract from the fact that the far left isn't going to get what they want out of this administration.
Rob, thanks so much for joining us, man. Better days ahead.
Yes, thanks a lot.
In the tradition of outgoing presidents, Donald Trump issued a massive number of pardons in his final hours. We're going to take a look at some of the names on his list and some who didn't quite make the cut when we come back. All right, we got an incredible new sponsor. These guys are awesome. Mammoth Nation. They're America's conservative discount club. Their mission is to fight for the conservative values and causes we all care about. That includes conservative candidates, the police and first responders, active military and veterans, American farmers and ranchers, the Second Amendment, and much more. The proceeds from your membership and purchases help support all of these great causes. It's better than a donation. In return for your patriotism, you're going to get great discounts on things like hotels, shopping, wireless, prescriptions, telehealth, and a whole lot more. Spend your money where it counts. Look, I'm a lifetime member of Mammoth Nation. You should become one too. That's right, join the fight. This is a great program and a fantastic deal as well. Go to mammothnation.com/buck. That's mammothnation.com/buck. This is for the causes you care about and for products you want that you can get a better price on. Become a lifetime member today, mammothnation.com/buck. In one of his last acts as president, Donald Trump, like many previous presidents, issued a final batch of pardons to a whole bunch of people. We can debate the merits and demerits of each specific pardon, but historically these have always been used to reward some personal friends and allies, with some legitimate cases sprinkled in to give an air of legitimacy to all of it. There were certainly some pardons that I and many others take issue with, while others that seem to be just and fair given the circumstances of the individual's case. Now, what is almost as interesting as who got a pardon is who didn't get pardoned. Some notables missing from the list are Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. These are two individuals we've been discussing here for a while as deserving of a pardon possibly. So why did Donald Trump hold back? Let's examine the key points of this roughly 150-person Trump pardon list on today's Buck Brief. Steve Bannon. I know Steve. He was a senior advisor to the president, joined the Trump campaign in 2016. He was the guy behind Breitbart.com for a while. Well, he was accused of a swindle of millions of dollars from people having to do with a Build the Wall 501c3, I believe it was. And they pressed federal charges against him. Bannon doesn't have to worry anymore. President pardoned him. I'd have to look at the specifics of this case. Otherwise, I like Steve, so if I were the president, I would have done this one just because I like Steve. So I'll leave it at that one. Then that's really what this comes down to. Let's be clear. At this stage, at the end of a presidency like this, you get these pardons that are happening for people really just because the president feels like it. And he does have the power to do it. He's like, you know what? It's about spreading mercy out there, giving it to people. It can also be gross, though, as we saw with Bill Clinton when in 2000 he pardoned Mark Rich, who is a Democrat financier, and his wife was a big donor to the Democrat Party. And so they decided, well, we'll take care of him, even though he fled justice, went overseas, never even faced the Justice Department, and he got a full pardon. Even Eric Holder, that's right, Eric Holder, later said that that one was kind of gross, that he didn't feel good being a part of that one. So not all pardons are the same. Let's be clear about that. The rapper and entrepreneur Lil Wayne received a pardon. So he performs Lil Wayne. His name is actually Carter, and he pleaded guilty in December to a federal weapons charge after he carried a handgun from California to Florida on his private jet due to past felony convictions. He was barred under federal law from possessing firearms. The charge carried a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. Wayne Carter, I suppose, is his name. I just figured that out as we're going through this. Not actually, of course, Lil Wayne. And Carter has frequently expressed support for Trump and most recently met with the president on criminal justice issues. So, you know, that's a pretty rough sentence. 10 years for, he didn't use the gun to do anything illegal. He was a felon in possession of a firearm. It's a 10-year federal sentence. It's a very stiff penalty they attached to that one. I actually think in general that should be revisited, especially if you're a non-violent felon in possession of a firearm. So I'll put a check mark next to the Lil Wayne pardon, although some people don't like that it seemed like it was a quid pro quo for Lil Wayne, Mr. Carter's endorsement of President Trump. So take that as it is. Kodak Black, this one was new to me. Kodak Black, whose legal name is Bill Coppery, was sentenced to 46 months in prison on federal weapons charges in 2019 after admitting that he falsified information on federal forms to buy 4 firearms. The rapper, this is another hip-hop artist, I believe. I was unfamiliar with this man's work beforehand. The rapper obtained 3 guns, a 9mm handgun, a .380 caliber handgun, and a semi-automatic mini Draco. He received a pardon. So he lied. Again, weapons charges for this guy. He got a 9, a .380, and a mini Draco, and he was going to go to prison for that, and they said no. The one that I think is disappointing, these are some of the, there was a Dr. Melgen who was a big donor. The guy defrauded Medicare out of tens of millions of dollars. That one I did not, that one, I don't like that one. And it looks like that's kind of a payoff for future political campaign contributions. Then you have the one that was getting the most attention, Julian Assange, right? The guy behind WikiLeaks. Here's Tucker Carlson on his show making the pitch for a presidential pardon that did not happen for Julian Assange.
Donald Trump has the opportunity to make that right, to pardon both of them. We told you that last night. We told you it before. We're hearing tonight that neither man, particularly Julian Assange, we don't know if this is true, is likely to get a pardon. Why? Well, apparently because Republicans in the Senate, and by Republicans in the Senate we mean Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, the leader of Republicans in the Senate, has sent word over to the White House, if you pardon Julian Assange, we are much more likely to convict you in an impeachment trial.
It's kind of like interfering with the president's final usage of his lawful and constitutional power, right? It's a nice pardon you got there. Be a shame if something happened to your impeachment process as a result of it, which I don't think was good for anybody involved. I also think that if you're looking at what happened here with Julian Assange, you got a guy who, and I worked in the intelligence community, I was in the CIA for a number of years, and he was public enemy number 1 for a while for the intelligence community, but at the end of the day, if you're publishing classified and you're an American journalist, you get away with it. That's just the way it is. Julian Assange never had a security clearance, and he's not even a U.S. citizen. So we were trying to get him for the Espionage Act, but he didn't commit espionage because it's not his country, and journalists get away with this all the time. So I just think that the argument there is pretty clear, but they did not give him one. Edward Snowden, this is another one that a lot of people focused in on. As you know, he disappeared. He defected, is actually really the term for it, to Russia, a whole lot of classified documents. He effectively showed the world that there were a lot of ways that in the digital architecture of the internet that the government was spying on people without them knowing it, or that there was the ability to do mass surveillance and use algorithmic spying to essentially keep tabs on what's going on with people in ways they had no idea about before. Some people view him as a hero for this. The president, clearly not enough of a hero for him, because he decided that he would not get a pardon after all. And then one that we did not have on our list, Joe Exotic. Now, I remember Joe Exotic because Tiger King was a show that got really big right about the beginning of the pandemic. When we really needed a good show to watch, there was Joe Exotic. Now, if I'm being honest with you, I think that show kind of went downhill after about the first 3 or 4 episodes. But overall, it's pretty entertaining. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a pet tiger, right? Well, actually, you can see having a pet tiger can be kind of dangerous. But Joe Exotic was prosecuted for a murder for hire scheme. And he really thought he was going to be pardoned by Donald Trump, and it just did not happen. There were a few others also that would be on the close but no cigar list, unfortunately for them. But this was one of the president's final acts. A lot of people on the list. We can't go through all 150 of them. So we will get into more of the Biden day one coming up here in a second with executive orders. Stick around. Newly minted President Joe Biden didn't waste any time signing a number of executive orders immediately after being sworn in. The orders read like something of a left-wing wish list and an effort to erase some of President Trump's signature executive orders. First on the list was one to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. That's right, without ever actually submitting to a Senate treaty. By the way, this is day one executive orders. Paris Accord, DACA, undo the Muslim ban, stop the border wall, order unified COVID response, as if we're not already doing that one. But anyway, extend foreclosure and eviction freeze, extend student loans, rescind Trump's 1776 commission, because pride in the history of America is, of course, a terrible thing, and undo Trump's census executive order. Okay, let's go through some of these just for a moment here. I mean, the one that's at the top of the list is the Paris Climate Accord, because this is essential for us. We have to get back into this thing right away. When was the last time you thought even about the Paris Climate Accord, or anybody for that matter who doesn't sit around watching Rachel Maddow and HBO all the time thinking that that's an accurate view of American politics? Who cares about the Paris Climate Accord? Well, the elites, of course, who fly in private jets to conferences at places like Davos to talk about climate change and how much they really care about it. There's no mechanism of actual enforcement for this. It's an entirely voluntary agreement. There's also no real metrics that countries can be held to because it's all self-reported. So this is basically like a whole bunch of nations getting together because of the religion of climate change. It's now global, and sitting around saying, well, this is what we're going to do to combat this thing. Yeah, I'm sure China and India are going to say, you know what, let's make our energy much more expensive. Let's make our industry much less efficient, so that a bunch of bureaucrats in London, Brussels, and Paris can feel better about the future of the planet. I don't think so. DACA. Trump didn't get an immigration deal done of any kind. We did not get a full wall, and we did not have DACA dealt with. So guess what? Now Joe Biden's going to make sure that DACA is even more enshrined in not really law, but in process. So this means an extension for people who are dreamers. He's also saying that it applies now to their families. So you remember that the original argument was that people came here illegally as children through no fault of theirs. It was their parents who brought them, so you can't punish the child for what the parent does. Well, now the parents are actually going to benefit, the whole family is going to benefit from the bringing of one person here. Do you think that sets a precedent that will be abused in the future as well? So you have an expansion of DACA. Undoing the Muslim ban, first of all, as we know, it's not even a Muslim ban. It applied to countries including North Korea and I believe Venezuela and a number of other countries that are not even majority Muslim, have very few Muslims actually. Very, very hard to find a Muslim in North Korea these days. So they call it a Muslim ban. It was a restriction on travel from countries that the Obama administration identified as having issues with terrorism that also did not meet us at the levels we needed for the vetting of people to come to this country. That was really what it was all about. They made a huge deal of this in the media, and even if, just remember, for the countries that were Muslim majority that were covered under this, it was, I think they did the math, 14, all the nations together under the so-called Muslim ban was something like 14% by population of the Muslim world, something like that. So, yeah, that's quite a ban. Anyway, they're getting rid of that. Stopping the border wall. Look, we didn't finish the wall. We didn't get a wall. Sea to shining sea. We have a lot of excuses, a lot of reasons why people say it didn't happen, but it didn't happen. We had about 15 miles or so, give or take a couple miles, of new wall and a few hundred miles of upgraded wall. Now, I have been to that border fence. I have seen that the upgrades do matter, but we didn't get anywhere near what we needed to really be able to have an impermeable defense at the border to continued illegal crossings, which is why you've got the caravans that are coming now. Although the caravans are going to be a lot of people who probably surrender at the border. They're not even trying necessarily to get into the country illegally. They're just going to show up and say that they need to be let into the country because they're claiming asylum. Unified COVID response. I'm pretty sure we're already trying that one. I'm pretty sure that's already baked into all this. You'll notice that today, in fact, they've started to print some stories about how the Biden team will not be able necessarily to get COVID under control as fast as they thought. Oh gosh, you mean this is actually really complicated and Biden doesn't have some secret answer to making a pandemic disappear? This should be no surprise to anyone. And then extending foreclosure, student loan pause, that's all fine. That would have happened under a Republican administration too, but none of this is really all that surprising. Rescinding the 1776 Commission, I want to come back to this one because they're doing this because they do plan to continue, as we saw with the 1619 Project from the New York Times, to rewrite the history of the United States and make it one where the left gets to create a narrative of America as an evil, racist place that needs dramatic transformation. Dare I say, a second revolution of sorts. Not good. So we'll continue to look at that. And we have more for you coming up here with quick hits in just a moment. These days, being prepared for the unknown is more important than ever. I'm sure you've noticed the world we live in today is anything but predictable. We could all benefit from something reliable right about now. What could be more reliable than real gold and silver? I'm talking about real gold and silver you can actually hold right in your hands. Call the Oxford Gold Group now and learn how easy it is to get real gold and silver sent securely directly to your home, or how you can have real gold and silver placed in your IRA or 401k. Just call the Oxford Gold Group at 833-600-GOLD and ask for your free guide on owning gold and silver. Again, call the Oxford Gold Group right now at 833-600-GOLD. The Oxford Gold Group is the only gold company I trust. Give them a call right now. Don't wait until inflation kicks in. Protect the dollars in your bank account. Take action to diversify and protect yourself from an uncertain financial climate today. Call 833-600-GOLD. One more time, that's 833-600-GOLD. Not since Chris Matthews got that thrill up his leg for Barack Obama has the media gone so gaga for an incoming president. We'll take a look at the media's slobbering over President Joe Biden in tonight's Quick Hits. And let's start with CNN's David Chalian. Just for those who are wondering, because I work in this business and I remember things like this, David Chalian is also the guy who was fired, I believe it was in 2011, from Yahoo News for being caught on a hot mic saying that Mitt Romney was, quote, happy to have a party while black people drown, end quote. He was fired from Yahoo for saying that, because he's an objective journalist, and promptly picked up and given a promotion by CNN. He is their political director. So if you're ever wondering what a serious news organization CNN is and how they take their credibility to heart, what a joke. But here is Mr. Chalian, whom I've never actually met, have no personal animus toward. I just thought you should know that little anecdote. Here he is talking about how Joe Biden's just like a big hug for America.
And the contrast on display tonight was so stark. I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool, it's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America.
Joe Biden wants a hug. That's what it is. He wants a hug. Something like that. Yeah. Journalism. Hashtag journalism. There you go. You're going to get a lot more of that too. Wow, it's just like when Joe Biden walks up to the podium, I'm not going to say it's like an angel is speaking, but it's like an old angel. You know what I mean? Yeah, a lot of that. So we could have done an entire show on all the pieces about how, oh gosh, who uses the Peloton first, Joe Biden or his wife, Jill Biden? Oh my gosh, I didn't say doctor because her PhD was, give me a break. Anyway, I'm calling it like I see it. Someone has to do that with this administration, or else things are going to get really divorced from reality. Speaking of a separation from what is true and what is accurate, MSNBC. It's a place where they also make up a lot of things. Joy Reid for the inauguration. She's a host over at MSNBC, and she was shocked about one part of it that I would like you to see.
I don't know if anyone else is struck by just seeing everyone masked, just the kind of public, sort of performance of responsible behavior. Even the Republicans are in masks. There's no longer that social pressure from Donald Trump to be maskless, to be sort of proudly maskless. That's pretty striking, at least for me to see.
Oh, that's right, because now all of a sudden wearing masks outside is the mandate. I thought that this was something that we could still have an adult conversation about, because if you look at all the studies, if you even look at what Fauci has said, outside transmission is very, very, very unlikely. But that's not responsible, you see. That's how things change all of a sudden, because we're not allowed to question, we're not allowed to ask questions. And so we are told, do this or else. But more importantly, you'll see this with a lot of Democrats. They really believe, they convince themselves that people like me don't like lockdowns, don't like the mask mandates because of Trump. No, it actually turns out I don't think that the destruction of millions of people's livelihoods with no apparent benefit in terms of the COVID numbers when you look at state-to-state comparisons of places like New York, California, Florida. Minimal at best benefit, and then you think about all the destruction that's been done, all the misery, all the overreach, all the unconstitutionality. When you look at all that, you realize, hold on, these people on the left, these Democrats, they think that I oppose lockdowns because Trump told me so? No. It's because lockdowns have been a disaster for this country. They have not worked here. They have not worked in Europe. Working should be something that is apparent to all, right? It should be so much better than it would otherwise be that no place would ever consider staying open. And as I said, I bring you the state of Florida. But nonetheless, this is where we are. They really believed all along that all of the COVID resistance, all of the people that didn't want the lockdowns, the mandates, the government overreach, the constantly changing mask up between bites. Remember that one? Or sit on a plane, make sure you mask up or we'll ban you from the plane. But if you want to have a drink, yeah, sit there, pull your mask down, breathe, everything's fine, which everybody does on planes. So the whole thing is crazy. But they really thought it was all because Trump, like the dear leader was telling us that this was the way we were supposed to be, and everyone's like, oh, okay, fine. No, it turns out I don't think that pseudoscience is good. I think that real science is good, which is why I want to see people getting this vaccine as soon as possible. And guess what? Joe Biden's not going to be so great at that one either. But I hope I'm wrong on that one. I hope I'm wrong on that one. There are some people who have professionally not benefited quite as much as others from the Trump time in office. Chris Wallace over at Fox News, who comes from media royalty, so I guess because of that, he just gets to do whatever he wants to do. He said this about Joe Biden's speech.
I thought it was a great speech. I've been listening to these inaugural addresses since 1961, John F. Kennedy, Ask Not. I thought this was the best inaugural address I ever heard.
You're going to hear a lot more of that kind of stuff in the media, too, including on places where there are some conservatives who are still allowed to have a platform. Best inaugural ever. That's right. Joe Biden now, a rhetorically gifted genius that just for some reason even the Democrat electorate rejected time and time and time again. But, you know, in his eighth decade of life, he's really gotten to the sweet spot. You know, now he's on it. That's what they want you to believe. But they think we're brainwashed, and I bring you yet another time when you're going to hear that kind of stuff. Here is one of the ladies of The View.
His defense, I think, is going to be, well, this is a witch hunt. This is a witch hunt against me. So, of course, I have to try to, pardon myself because everyone's out against me. And guess what? 74 million people are going to believe that because they've been brainwashed, Joy. I really believe that they have been brainwashed by this misinformation campaign.
Maybe, just maybe, of that 74 million people, and the ladies of The View, if they want, I could come on and explain this to them, slowly, not using any particularly big words. Maybe the reason people voted for Donald Trump wasn't because they're in love with him, they think he's some super genius that's going to save the country. Maybe there were a lot of people that voted for Trump because of what his policies were supposed to be, and because they don't want to be in favor of abortion for all 9 months of a pregnancy, de facto open borders, an increasing march toward socialism, foreign wars with no apparent end in sight, trade deals where the U.S. just is subsidizing the rise of other countries like China. Maybe they voted for those reasons, and it's not actually, just seeing hashtag MAGA in the tweets. They could think about that for just a moment. But no, that would require too much integrity and honesty. Much more fun now to pretend that everybody who supported Trump was just brainwashed. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah, some of us knew exactly what we're doing. And we're going to know what we're doing going forward, too. That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next.